So my name is Jackie Eaton, and I am the Community Action Program for Children, or CAPC, Training and Education Coordinator. I work at the Saskatchewan Prevention Institute in Saskatoon. And before we get started, and as we're waiting for Lyndon to park and get his camera going, I just want to invite you all to the Supporting Indigenous Children in the Early Years webinar. And I would like just to take a moment to ground myself, and I encourage you all to do the same. And I just want to express my extreme appreciation and respect for the land that I live, work, and play on. I am currently on Treaty 6 in the homeland of the Métis. My ancestors came to Canada as settlers, and so I want to acknowledge all of the treaties of these lands and reaffirm my relationships to Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. I work at the Saskatchewan Prevention Institute, and we are a provincial organization. So I also want to extend my appreciation to the Nahiawak, the Nahithawak, Nahinawak, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Ananishpik and Nakaway peoples, as well as those from the homeland of the Métis. I just want to introduce the Prevention Institute. Many of you may know who we are, but for those of you that do not, our mandate at the Institute is to help all children thrive through prevention and the promotion of well-being. So this webinar is actually the result of a team of us. So we have what's called the Early Childhood Team, which has program coordinators from the Perinatal Infant Health Program, FASD Prevention Program, Early Childhood Mental Health, Child Injury Prevention Program, as well as parenting programs. So CAPC is a part of that, as well as Nobody's Perfect Parenting Program. And we also have our research and evaluation team lead. So I am thrilled today that we have Lyndon joining us from the highway, which is so incredibly cute. This is one of the first times I've ever had this happen. But at the Prevention Institute, over the last year and a half or so, we have been working hard as a staff to learn more about truth and reconciliation. And Lyndon has been a key person in helping us on our journey. It is one of the things that when we have our staff time together, it is incredibly empowering for us to learn more. And I am so excited that Lyndon is here to share with us knowledge and traditions and information that will help us all working with the young children. So I'm just going to read a very short bio. Lyndon is a traditional knowledge keeper and storyteller. He has an educational background in Indian social work, Indian studies, and some law. He is a citizen of the Thunderchild First Nation on Treaty 6 and has roots in the Couchiching First Nation in Ontario, Treaty 3. And I hope I said that right, Lyndon, I'm sorry. He is presently working with the Remai Modern Art Museum in Saskatoon as their Indigenous Relations Advisor. And he is the longest serving member of the Office of Treaty Commissioner Speakers Bureau. Lyndon is one of the most powerful storytellers I have ever met in my life, and I always love his humor and always learn something new from when I hear him speak. So I'm going to pass it on to you, Lyndon. For people that have questions, please use the chat function, and I will be sure to share that information. I'll be monitoring that. If you have any issues as well, definitely put it in the chat and I will do my best to help you. So welcome, Lyndon.
All right. Thank you so much, Jackie. I want to start off by saying in Tuhtemtik, I guess you could translate that into dear colleagues. Awamina Nawako Magantik. I guess you could translate that into relatives in the sense that we are under the same umbrella of this this video here, this webinar. Yeah, in that sense, we are all related. So in the language, that would be Nuwakumagantik. And that ending on both words, Dohtemtik and Niwakumagantik, they kind of end in, I guess the letters would be IC, you know, that ik, if that makes sense. It sounds kind of funny, but Dohtemtik, Niwakumagantik. In the language, when you hear that ending, it's always in a spiritual sense. So that's how I want to start off by greeting colleagues, relatives, in the spiritual sense. I want to shake hands with all of you. That's how we'd say that. I shake hands with all of you. And of course, I'm very honored to have been asked by Prevention Institute to spend a good hour with you, maybe a little bit longer, sharing some stories and some, as we refer to as teachings, you know, from our traditional ways as Indigenous peoples with respect to young children, child rearing, kind of along that kind of perspective, I guess you could say. So I just want to start off again by, as Jackie mentioned, I come from two different First Nation backgrounds in terms of my ancestry. On my late father's side, we are known as Anishinaabe peoples. We are from Treaty 3 territory, and the name of our First Nation is Couchiching. And Couchiching is in the language, Anishinaabe or in the Ojibwe language. And Couchiching, Anishinaabe, what that means in English, it's where the river runs into the lake, that whole area there. That's Couchiching. In English, I guess you could say like the mouth or the delta, you know, where it meets the lake. That would be in English. So long time ago, I'm told, I don't know if this is true, I don't know, or if I've experienced, but a long time ago, so you say to your honey, hey honey, I'll meet you at the Couchiching. And then so they know where to go, right? Anyways, we come from Couchiching First Nation, which is right next door to a town called Fort Francis, Ontario. And that's where we come from on my late father's side. And so when I was born, I was actually born in Edmonton. So you can see my hat here. And that's my excuse anyways. I was born in Edmonton, but I come from Couchiching. My father, you know, was raised in that reserve, but my dad went to residential school, as did my mom as well. But my dad went for 12 years, the first 8 in Northwestern Ontario, place called St. Marguerite Indian Residential School. And then the final 4 years, the Indian agent or the Crown, the government, sent him to Saskatchewan. And that's where he finished off his the last 4 years of his residential schooling, place called Lebret, Saskatchewan. So that's on my dad's side. On my mom's side, we are Nehiawak peoples. We come from Treaty 6 territory, and the name of our First Nation is Thunderchild. And that's where we come from on my mom's side. Nikawi Nehiauskro, my mom is a Plains Cree woman. We come from Thunderchild. The name of our chief, Biesu Awasis. Ishigashut, that's what the name of our chief was. And literally, that's Thunderchild, Biesu Awasis. You know, that's how they say Thunderchild. But I guess when Thunderchild was younger, he used to sit a certain way. It was almost as if he was like kneeling or sitting cross-legged. And it's like his thigh bone would be like exposed, and that part of your body that's what they would call them. They'd say kaptun, and that's what that part of your, it's like your thigh, you know, and that's what you call that in Cree, kaptun. So the elders gave him that name, kaptun, and because of how he sat, because of how he positioned himself, like he would sit cross-legged a certain way, or he sat a certain way, and anyways, it was kind of like awkward to all the other people, and it was a unique way how he sat, and he would sit like that for hours. So anyways, the elders, that's what they gave him that name, Kaptun. So as he grew older, like that was his nickname, and when he went on to become chief, they'd say, "Where do you come from?" Dante Otigia. They'd say that, they'd ask you, "Where do you come from?" And the response would be Kaptukana. And so they would understand that to be where Thunderchild comes from, you know, because that was his name, Kaptun. They say Kaptugana. So we are known as a Kaptugana Isinowak. We are Thunderchild's people. So anyways, that's like kind of here nor there. But anyways, I share these stories with you. But I'm here to talk to you about you know, child rearing, young children, from an importance, you know, from an Indigenous perspective. And I'm going to share some stories with everybody here, and we're just going to have fun. And I invite you at any time to ask questions. Jackie's going to be moderating the chat feature. Just ask your questions, and then Jackie will she'll just ask the questions to me, and you know, and I'll answer them. So how I wanted to start off, you know, what I wanted to say, maybe people are unaware of this, but you know, as First Nations people, people may be surprised to learn of this, but we as First Nations people had medicine that was equivalent to birth control, and the women and the girls were taught about conceiving, right? And so we too, as First Nation people, would plan to have children. And if we didn't want to have children, they would take the medicine. You know, the girls and the young women, they would eat that medicine, and that's what it was birth control. It would be like being on a contraceptive. So like that existed in our culture. Like we had that as Indigenous peoples, and I'm not sure if people are aware of that, but we did have that. And so from a cultural perspective, you know, we would plan to have children, you know, which kind of doesn't seem to be the way, like in my own personal story, you know, because of the impacts of the residential schools, because of loss of culture, loss of language, loss of traditions, you know, we were all kind of like mixed up, and we still are mixed up for that matter. And we're overcoming those, you know, the things that we've been mixed up with, we're overcoming. And some of us are reacquiring our traditional ways, reacquiring our languages, relearning the traditions, the medicines, the stories. And but anyways, you know, to put it bluntly, I was never taught about birth control as a, you know, a young boy or teenage adolescent growing up. You know, because my parents went to residential schools that were Catholic, like we were raised Catholic, and how we were raised, don't talk about sex. You know, you don't talk about sex, like you just don't. And so like we were not raised with that, you know, to make a child, like to plan to have a child. So children would be made, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of sounds funny saying this, but anyways, um there are some people, I would believe, I'd have to say, there are some people that actually plan to have children, right? And they're working, and they want to have children, and there's on my cousin Vinny's show, biological clock is ticking, so they gotta have a child, right? So they plan and whatever, and then that's what they do, and they have children. But it seems to me, in my personal experience and what I've seen, it's unfortunate to say, sometimes in some communities, there's like children having children. You know what I mean? They're not even mature enough, to be a parent, but they're sexually active, and they're conceiving, and they're having children, and it doesn't seem, and they're not ready, they're not emotionally ready. But anyways, the whole point, what I'm trying to say is, like, once upon a time, in our traditional ways, like, we plan these things, and there was thought put into what we did, and not like today we're overcoming those things, and we're learning, and we're relearning. But anyways, I just to talk about the cultural perspective that we had with respect to children. One of the teachings I've heard, it's like a saying that I've heard, especially from my own mother. I've heard this saying: children are on loan to us. That's a saying that I've heard. Children are on loan to us. Children are gifts from the Creator. I've heard that many, many times. So what that does is it gives me insight into, like, how we thought about children and how precious they are. And some of us are lucky enough to be parents. Some of us are lucky enough to be grandparents. And, to hold a baby in your arms and to raise a child, that is, most of the times are your descendants, right? And we always want what's best for our future generations, and they will inherit, things that we leave for them. And so they'll carry on our name, they'll carry on our memory, our tradition. So that it's very important. Like, children are so important, and accordingly, that's how we view them, and that's how we treat them. And of course, we want to be good parents in raising these children, and so we'll teach them right from wrong from our cultural perspective, what we determine to be right or determine to be wrong. And so from a traditional perspective, we had our own values, what we thought was right. I use air quotes because cultures are different. So, for example, in our traditional cultures, like, we do not own land. We belong to the land. In our traditional culture, like, it doesn't make sense that you own land. Like, no one can own land. Like, that's our mother Earth. You don't own your mother, so it's not as if our future generations are going to inherit, the land that we're living on. You see, so because of that cultural difference, we have a different attitude towards, land. Another difference, for example, in our traditional culture, money didn't exist. So we never had money. So it's not as if we're going to leave our children, our future children, like when we pass away and we write a will, that we're going to leave them, the castle, and we're going to leave them all the, the riches, the monies that have been generated, like they'll be passed on. Like, we never thought like that as Indigenous peoples, because we had a different culture. So we have different attitudes towards, like, property, and I use property in air quotes. We have different attitudes towards those revenues, I guess you could say. But the values we have these, and to some degree they are similar to, the dominant culture values, but to some degree as well, they're very different. But when I talk about that teepee, we put up these poles, teepee poles. In Ojibwe, Anishinaabe ways, we would cover those poles with birch bark. And how you say birch bark, we say wigwas. So our homes, we called them wigwam. That's in the language. So that's what a wigwam is. A wigwam is a home made from wigwas. So in other words, a wigwam is a birch bark covered teepee, and because that's how you say birch bark in the language is wigwas. So the same thing with the Anishinaabe peoples and the Nehiyawak peoples. They're similar, and so those teepee poles or wigwam poles, whichever language you use to describe them, they have very special meanings. And for example, these poles, what they represented values that we would teach our children. So one value, for example, like one of the most important values is the value of respect. To respect other ways, to respect people, to respect the land, to respect the animals, to respect the plants, like all these living beings that are around us, like to respect them, to respect each other, and respect people. And so like that's one of the poles of the teepee or the wigwam or the miigwap, whatever language is used. That's what these poles would represent, values. So that's certainly one value that we would teach the child, the value of respect. And there's some other values too that are very common amongst all Indigenous peoples, whether you are Dakota or Anishinaabe or Nehio or Dene, whatever group you come from, they'll have these meanings that we will teach the children. And these meanings basically convert to values. And some of these values, as I mentioned, respect. Another one is kindness. It's very important to be kind. Other values, honesty or truthfulness. There's other values regarding I'm just trying to remember here. Like there's even a value about child rearing and obedience. These are some of the other values. And so depending on which nation you came from, because all the nations are very different, some nations might use 15 teepee poles. And so they would teach these like 15 values, they would pass on. Whereas some of the other nations, maybe they only use 11 teepee poles, so it's a little bit less. My teacher, the one who taught me, said to me that we use 16 poles. And he was a Plains Cree. And I know a lot of Plains Cree use 15, but my teacher said, no, we use 16. And what he said to me was, if you think about our sweat lodge, how many willows do we use to build our sweat lodge? And I know the answer. The answer is 16. Because we wouldn't use 15, because it won't work if we use 15 willows to make the sweat lodge. So anyways, that's what my teacher taught me. So when we put up a teepee, we'll try and use 16 poles. But anyways, again, the value of respect, right? So we respect these differences amongst each other. It's not for me to go and tell someone, hey, you're using 15 poles, you're supposed to use 16. Like we don't do that. We just see how they do it, and we respect their ways. That's how they do it. It's not up to us to go change them, correct them, because there's no one right way. There's many different ways. And so anyways, that these are some of the values that we would teach the child. I want to tell a few stories too about my cousin, my first cousin from Thunderchild. She had many children, and the last one she had, she wanted to give birth the traditional way. She didn't want to go to a hospital. She wanted a midwife to deliver her baby. And so they found this old lady back in Thunderchild who was a midwife, and she knew how to deliver babies and newborn babies. So the cool part about this story is what the midwife told my cousin, to make a special drink from these certain plants. And the grandmother, this midwife, told my cousin to go get these plants, how they look like, what they're called, where they grow. And I think there's like 4 or 5, maybe 6 different plants that she was instructed to go and get. And after she got all these plants, she was to make a tea out of these plants. And the midwife told her, when your water breaks, you make that tea and you drink that tea. And she told my cousin like exactly the dosage, what to use, how many of the plants to put in the teapot, to boil the water. And she told her exactly how to do everything. So when my cousin started to go into labor, her water broke. She drank that drink and she went into labor. What the really cool, interesting thing my cousin said was, of all her children she had, she must have like at least 10 kids, my cousin there. I don't even know. I could try to count them in my mind here, but let's just say she's got 10 kids. And the last one she had, the very last son that she had, that was the one she had with the midwife. And so when she drank that tea, that's what my cousin said, that was so surprising. Of all the children she delivered, that she gave birth to, this last one was the easiest in terms of pain. So like she didn't need, in some of her previous deliveries, she had to get that, I think it's called the epidural, the needle in the back, because of the pain that they go through when they're delivering. So what this midwife did or knew about from her teachings and her training, she knew how to create a medicinal epidural, I guess you could call it. And that was so cool. Like my cousin was just amazed, just blown away. She gave birth, and it was as if she was under, pain reliever, and it just helped smooth the delivery. And the pain that she was in was by far like the easiest delivery she had of all her children. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. I share that with you again about our traditional ways, that we still have them, and then we as First Nation people, it's up to us to carry on those ways. Nobody's gonna do that for us. We got to do that. It's up to us to go out, talk to our old people, learn from them, keep that knowledge and transmit that knowledge to the younger generations to keep our traditions alive. So, having shared that teaching, again, I want to share with you a couple more stories about our children, like when they're born. Some of you's listening to this this Zoom here, this webinar, you may already know these things, but I'll share them anyways, and you'll have a little laugh about them or chuckle. But we have these ceremonies. I use the analogy of the wishbone from the turkey. When we have Thanksgiving turkey and we carve up the turkey, and we get the wishbone, and we put the wishbone somewhere up high on a door, or else a coat hanger, whatever. We put it like that, and then to dry it out. And then what we do, after it's dry, like two people, and this is how I was taught anyways, maybe you'll be different here, but you get that wishbone and you got to use your pinkies, right? And two of you use your pinkies, and what you do is you pull that wishbone apart, and while you're pulling that wishbone apart, you make a wish. And then when that wishbone breaks, whoever has the longer part of the wishbone, like, their wish is supposed to come true. So I don't know if that's how anybody out there in the webinar world can agree with that, but that's how I was taught to do the wishbone from the Thanksgiving turkey thing. So anyways, I'm using that as an analogy because we have that kind of something a little bit similar, and it has to do with when a baby is born. Okay, so how it works, when the baby is born, the doctor will cut the cord, the umbilical cord, or the midwife, whoever delivers the baby, and they cut the cord, and usually what they do is they put like a little clothespin at the end of the umbilical cord, and it's on the belly, or of the baby, the newborn. And then what happens a couple days later is it falls off. And after it falls off, like, what's left is a belly button. That's what we call your belly button, And so what happens is you got this clothespin, and at the end of the clothespin is this little dried up piece of meat. And that's the belly button, right? And so in our culture, traditional culture, what we would do is they would make a little pouch for it, like a little sack. And it could be made out of leather. It could be made out of like broadcloth. Could be made out of any kind of material. Sometimes it might even be fancy. It might even have beads on it. They bead a design to it. Or it could be even porcupine quill beads. It might have fringing, it might be made out of leather. Like, however it's made, and sometimes it's fancy. Other times it's just a plain little pouch, made from fabric, and how they put the string up top and they tie it, and it's just a little pouch, a little bag. So how it works, they put that little belly button in there, in that little pouch, and they tie it up. And usually on the father's side of the child, could be the dad or the dad's brothers or the dad's uncles, the male side of the child's family, the newborn's father's family, but the men, though, what they will do is they'll take that little sack with the belly button in it, and they'll go bury it somewhere. And the idea, if the dad wants his child to be like a good hunter, they'll go bury that by a place where there's really good hunting, I guess nowadays way of thinking, say they want their child to be a doctor. So I guess what they would do is they'd go bury that little sack by the College of Medicine at the university. If they want their child to be a lawyer, they'll go bury it by the College of Law, that little sack. And that's kind of like the tradition there. And it's kind of like a ceremony, but you know, it's kind of like the wishbone thing, you know. But anyways, I use that that story because that's what we do in my family. And so there's a saying, maybe you know somebody who's really nosy and they come to your house and they dig in your closets, they dig in your drawers, they dig in your cupboards, you know. And so what that they would say to a person like that, they'd say, "What are you looking for? Your belly button?" They'd say that. But anyways, that's the story about the belly button. And of course, I can't help but crack a joke. And what I say is, there must be a lot of belly buttons buried by the bingo hall. Anyways, there's that's the belly button, and it's kind of like a ceremony, and it's kind of, you know, it's a tradition. It's like a ceremony, but it's you know, it's kind of like the wishbone thing, you know. It's more of a tradition, I guess you could say. More important ceremony when a baby's born, called a placenta ceremony. So what happens? The baby's born, out comes the baby, and then after the baby's born, out comes the placenta, or the afterbirth. That's another term that they refer to, the afterbirth. And then they cut the cord, right? And after they cut the cord, what they would do is they would take that afterbirth, or really what it is the placenta. That's what it's called. They will take the placenta along with the cord, the umbilical cord, you know, they wrap it up, and they will use material. Could be broadcloth, could be some kind of fabric, could be leather, you know, and they'll wrap it around that placenta. And again, it could be fancy. It could have beads. It could have fringing. It could have painting on it or drawing on it. And so what they will do with that placenta, usually on the mom's side, the mother's side of the newborn, could be her sisters, her aunties, her mothers, her grandmothers. The women will go and have a ceremony with that placenta, and they wrap it up and they'll take it to a special place, a clean place. Could be by the forest, by the mountain, by the lake, by the river, like, but a place where, you know, people aren't going there like to pollute it, to go party, you know, kind of like a secluded place. And what they'll go do is they'll dig a hole in the ground and they'll bury that placenta, and they'll put down some tobacco and they'll say a prayer. And what they'll do is they'll thank placenta, because for 9 months it kept baby alive. And so what they say to placenta is they say thank you, and they say that you're going to go back to the Mother Earth now. You've done your job, you know, so you kept baby alive. Your job is finished. Now we're going to return you to the Mother Earth. And so they it's like a funeral ceremony. And then they bury placenta, and then they cover it and put down a tobacco, pray, sing, and that's what's referred to as a placenta ceremony. And you know, from a traditional perspective, I think that's so cool. Nowadays, there's this mental health called postpartum depression, and you know, it's a mental health illness, I guess you could call it. And from a traditional, you know, First Nation perspective, the body is undergoing grieving, you know, because the body has lost a part of itself. Like the placenta and the umbilical cord used to be part of the body, you see? And so when the mom gives birth, those parts leave. And so when that happens, it's like the body is freaking out because it's losing those pieces that were a part of it before, you see? And so what happens is the body starts to grieve. And it's like the mom doesn't even know why she's depressed. She just feels depressed all of a sudden, you know? And anyways, that's what how I would explain that. And so that's why it's such a beautiful thing to go and have that placenta ceremony. Because it's, you know, when we lose our loved ones, we need to grieve and we need to say goodbye, or we need to say, I'll see you again, you know, in the spirit world, you know. And so we need to sing, we need to pray, we need to have ceremony. And that's what funerals are all about. So in a sense, that's what that placenta ceremony is kind of about. But again, I share these examples of these ceremonies when, you know, when the child is born. So what happens then soon after that is children, you know, begin their journeys. And you know, they call it the circle of life. And so when the child is born, they come into the world, they come right from the spirit world. And when the baby is born, the baby needs help. The baby cannot look after themselves. The baby needs somebody to care for the baby. The baby needs somebody to feed, to drink. You know, the baby is helpless in that regard. And so the mom, usually it's the mom, will be the one, is the very first human being that the baby will ever meet, because the baby grew up inside the mom's tummy, you see? So of all of us on this webinar listening in right now, that's what I share with you, call it a teaching. Like, our mothers are the ones we've known the longest in our lives, you know, by at least 9 months, because they're the only person we knew, right? And that's why a mother's bond is so sacred, so special, that bond that exists between a mother and a child, a newborn, very powerful bond that has occurred, and it's sacred. It's very, very sacred. And so that's the reason why, because of the womb, right? And being inside our mother's womb, and then we're born, we come into the world screaming, you know, and our mothers are the ones, one of the first ones to hold us and start to hug us and love us up, you know. And so that journey on the circle of life begins for us. And as children, you know, we begin to learn, you know, how to cry and how to communicate. And there's a way how we communicate, and mom knows when we're hungry. Mom knows when we need to be burped. Mom knows when we need to be changed, you know. And like we already begin to communicate with our mother, and we have a certain cry or a certain whimper already. We're already beginning to communicate. And so this is what happens on our journey on the circle of life begins. And the role that the mother has is so powerful role that our mothers play in our lives. And of course, dad is there too. And like, traditionally speaking, a mom and a dad are so important in a child's life. Very, very important. Each parent has a role to play in the upbringing of a child, and each parent will have a huge impact on that child's life. in the role that they play as parents. And so I guess what I'm talking about now, we call them roles. Like each has a role. You know, the father has a role and the mother has a role. And this is from a traditional perspective, you know, the roles that they play. But
Can
I'm
I
looking at
interrupt
this
you,
book.
Lyndon? Sorry, I just
Yeah,
have one
sure.
question here from Brittany.
Yeah,
She's
sure.
asking, are men able to join the placenta ceremony, and are women able to go to bury the umbilical cord?
I would say yes to both. You see, now what's happening right now, our culture is changing. And in my opinion, culture must change. Culture must adapt. Otherwise, it'll end. So now what's happening, you know, with Brittany's question there, opens another topic. Today, I see a lot of single parents, and that's how things are. Like, there's a lot of single parents out there, and it's usually the mom. Usually, it's the mom who's the single parent. The mom is the one raising the child, and the dad is not around, or the dad's not in the picture. The dad's like they've separated, and they have two households now, and so there's a lot of like single parenting. So the mom has to play like both roles. So that's what I would say in that situation. Yeah, you go have your belly button ceremony. You go have your placenta ceremony, because it has to be done. If we sit there and say, oh, we can't do it because the men are not supposed to be there. Oh, we can't do it because the women are not supposed to be there. Like, the thing will never get done, you know? So it has to be done. And that's my mom talking. I can hear my mom in my ears. Lyndon, use your common sense. That's what my mom would say. Anyways, to Brittany's question, yeah, go right ahead. It's okay. If you do the belly button ceremony or the placenta ceremony, either way, like, it's all good. That's my advice, anyways, my 2 cents. So let's see now. What time we're doing good, eh, Jackie? It's like I've been, according to my Zoom, I've been almost going an hour here.
Well, I've got, so you've been talking for about 50 minutes, so you have another 40 minutes if that works for you.
Okay, cool. Any other questions anybody want to ask? Now's your chance. Any other questions?
No, there's nothing right now. Someone did share when you were talking about the belly button ceremony, how I just got to scroll up in the sun. They said, I thought the umbilical cord was supposed to be put somewhere you want your child to be good at something, like thrown into the lake to be a good swimmer. That was from Brittany as well.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's the belly button or the cord. Like, again, we're different nations. Could be Dakota, could be Cree, could be Anishinaabe, like, and there's all these differences. So again, I want to stress that to all the listeners out there, to always be aware, you know, of these differences that exist with amongst the First Nations, because we're all different. We're diverse. We have different languages, different cultures. So there will be these differences, but at the same time, there's like similarities too. Anyways, you know, talking about the child now, you know, as the child starts to make their journey on, we call it the circle of life. And ultimately, you know, we hope to have long lives, and we hope to you know, complete a full circle. It's very sad and it's very tragic, but it happens. Sometimes children get taken from us, you know, and they pass away, and it's always very tragic. Could be from illness, could be from accident, you know, whatever the reason. And you know, they just have a short little life and they're gone, you know. And then, anyways, what I'm trying to say is, sometimes some of us, like we live to a long, ripe old age. You know what I mean? And so in that kind of statement that I say, it's like we had a full circle, a full circle. So of course, I think about my late father. My late dad lived to be 79. You know, I wish he could have stayed longer, you know, but we don't know. We don't know it, but I think my dad passed away from leukemia. That's what I think. He had cancer, and like they didn't even catch it or diagnose it. But anyways, my dad lived to be 79, and my dad struggled with type 2 diabetes. And my dad would have to take at least 2 needles a day of insulin, you know. And the thing about my late dad is he believes so much in our traditional ways, especially with the sweat lodge ceremony. And there was a time when my dad was in his his late 30s, when he got into sweat lodge ceremonies, you know, and then he started sweating. Oh, my dad would sweat at least like once a week. And this went on for like 20 years. He would go into the sweat lodge at least once a week. And me, that's what I say. I truly, truly believe with all my heart, that's why my dad lived so long. Like for someone with type 2 diabetes, someone who took insulin twice a day, like to live to be 79, like that's why he lived so long, is because of that sweat lodging that he did. So in that sense, my dad had a full circle, you know, when he was born, and he lived to be, you know, the age that he lived to. Like he had a good long life. So I was happy about that, you know. Like he got to see many, many things. But I know there's some other people who live to be like 100 years old, right? And whatever, I don't know what the longest living person is on, could be 120 years old. But anyways, this is what we hope for as people, like to have good long lives, and for the most part, for our lives to be fulfilling, you know, for us to have like to live a good life, not a hard life, you know. So anyways,
I do have a couple more questions now.
sure, yeah, go ahead.
So Lori is asking, could you speak about the Indigenous naming ceremony?
Cool. So again, you know, we are given names. We have different names. Um, the names we are born with, that our parents name us as children. That's our born names. And then there's another name that we ask for as we make our journey on the circle of life. So it's almost they call that a rite of passage. When a boy goes through puberty and is going to become a man, or when a girl goes through puberty and she becomes a woman, you know, when she has her first cycle. These are what are known as rites of passages. And in around those times, that's when they'll ask for another name, like a spirit name. And so they'll go and approach like a name giver. And all you do is ask around, you know, do you know someone who gives names? And people might know, they might not know. They'll say, go and talk to so-and-so, you know, and so you go talk to so-and-so, then they'll tell you, yeah, talk to this person, whatever. Pretty soon you're going to find a name giver, right? And you'll get a name in ceremony. Sometimes it's our own family members, like Kokum or Mushum. They can give you a name in your own family, you know. And so anyways, that next name that you're given, they call that like a spirit name. And that spirit name, it's up to you. You can tell people this is my name now, you know, because people change their names all the time. And so you as an individual, you can do that as well. You can choose to be called your spirit name as a, don't call me Lyndon anymore. My name's not Lyndon. My name is, and you know, I would say whatever, you know, if I wanted to. But anyways, I just throw that out there. But yeah, so we get these that's what they're called, is like spirit names. And these names are gifted, and they happen from ceremonies. Could be different kinds of ceremonies, sweat lodge ceremonies, could be from a pipe ceremony. And you know, there's protocols how you acquire a name. So that's what you would do. You go talk to somebody, just ask questions. And I have a tobacco question. You can just say that, and you go give them tobacco, and then you just ask them, how do I get a name? Do you know who gives names? What should I do? You know, what's the protocol? You just figure all that out, and then that's what you do. And then you go, and that's how you'll acquire a name. I have many names growing up as a child. Like, and of course, we all get nicknames too, right? We get our nicknames that we're called. But it wasn't until I was 21 years old when I got my spirit name. And I got my spirit name from an old man. He was from Onion Lake. And the people older than me, like I'm 60 now. So, you know, people that are in their, you know, mid 60s, 70s, 80s, if I say this guy's name, they'll know him. They'll know who I'm talking about. And that's who gave me my name. And so that's my spirit name. And what it translates to, my spirit name is like Earth Buffalo. That's what my spirit name is. And you know what's cool about that? I was given this name from this man who was in Saskatchewan. And you know, I went through protocol and all that, and I asked for the name, and I got that name, and it was so cool. It was done in a teepee. And after I got my name, I gave him the protocol, you know, and then he thought and he prayed, and we had a pipe ceremony. Then he gave me my name. And then after he gave me my name, when it came time for me to leave the teepee, I had to stand up in the teepee, and I went in a circle, and I shook everybody's hand. And everybody's hand that I shook, they all said my name to me and nodded. You know, so I'd go to the next person, they say my name, they nod at me, I'd shake their hand. And I don't know, there must have been like 20 of us sitting in that teepee. So by the time I made that full circle, it's like I knew how to say my name, because each person would say it over and over again. It was so cool. And so when I left the teepee, when I exited the teepee door, like I knew how to say my name in the language. And that's how it worked for me. But again, there's many different ceremonies and how they occur. You know, some names get given in the sweat lodge. Some names get given in the living room of a house. Like there's all different ways. And anyways, I just sharing like how I got my name. But also too on my Ojibwe side, my Anishinaabe side, it's also important to get your colors. So you get a name and you also get your colors. And again, those are given to you in ceremony. So these colors that you get given, these colors, like for whatever reason, these colors will be made known to you. And then you use these colors maybe in your outfit that you wear, in your powwow attire. You'll use those colors, or you'll use these colors, you know, for protection, I guess you could say. In your own home or your vehicle, you'll hang ribbons of those certain colors. See, I'm wearing a ribbon shirt right now. These ribbons here represent things. And for me, this ribbon shirt I love to wear it because like the orange, I wear it to honor the residential school survivors. And then the red one represents all the animals that we eat, the blood from the bison, the deer, I guess even the cow, the pig, whatever animals we eat. And then this one here for the water that we drink. And of course the yellow to represent the sun. So these are like colors, and colors have meaning. And so some First Nation people, you could be Cree too, I guess. Well, you'll be given your colors along with your name. And so when you get those, yeah, you use those colors in your life because they have meaning. So these are some of the kind of answers I would give to the question that was asked there. Are there any other questions besides that one, Jackie?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sonia asked, was there a way to find out the gender of the child before birth?
I know that there were some, we called them gifted people. And these gifted people, for whatever reason, they knew what gender the child would be. Maybe they had a vision. Maybe they were, I guess you call them psychic, you know. And so, but I don't know if there's like, as opposed to like Western medical, technology where they can do ultrasound and take, pictures and then actually determine, the sex of a baby while the baby's in the mother's womb. Like we didn't have that per se, but I do know from stories of certain individuals, like they would know. I also heard stories from mothers themselves, like the mom that gave birth knew she's going to have a girl, knew she's going to have a boy. So like I don't know if there's like Western science, that can back that up, but that would be these are some examples of how we knew. Just recently, my second oldest had a baby shower because his wife is going to give birth to their first child, and so they had a baby shower. And my daughter-in-law, must have been about 8 months pregnant at the time. So I went to this baby shower and I couldn't stay long. I could only be there for like 15 minutes and I had to go. I was going out of town, but I popped in there, to support my son and, his family there. So I waltzed in there and I met the other mother-in-law, my son's mother-in-law. We shook hands and then I met my daughter-in-law and I told her, I'm sorry, I got to leave, but I brought a little present for my grandchild, and she was so happy, and she gave me a hug. When she gave me a hug, right away in my mind, I seen this image of a little girl. Like, go figure, right? I don't know. That's what I saw in my mind. And so that was that, and I gave her the gift, whatever, and then I shook hands and away I went. And that shower that they were having, it was a gender reveal shower, and they had the results from this test that they took an image of the child or whatever, and so it was a shower but also a gender reveal. And the mom and my son didn't know the results. Like they waited until that shower to open up the results. So anyways, guess what she opens up the result to be? A girl. So I got that news as I was driving, to wherever I was going. Hey dad, guess what? I'm gonna have a daughter. But it's like, whoa, is that ever? But what can I say? That's what I seen in my mind, but I don't know. Am I just imagining it? I don't know. But anyways, yeah, so that's how I would answer that question.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, we have one from Kashan. She's asking, do you know if there was any teaching about medicine for the healing from afterbirth?
Oh yeah, for sure. The midwife will know the medicines for um you know childbirth and the after effects of childbirth. The midwife or the grandmother, she will have medicines for whatever to help with the the post childbirth effects, without a question. But again, like I'm not a medicine man and I wouldn't know, but all I could do is I could ask my cousin what's the name of that midwife, and and then maybe I don't even know if she's still alive. But anyways, there's this knowledge, like it still does exist, but you have to ask for it, and you gotta go and be prepared to do all the legwork to go find out. It's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter, and that's the other way about our traditional ways. Like if you're going to learn something, don't go on Google. Don't go on Facebook. Like that's not how you learn that. Like personally, I'm on Facebook, but I make the personal choice. I don't write down what I'm doing in my life every single hour to the minute. Some of my Facebook friends, oh my goodness, I'm going to the bathroom now. Like it's like TMI, too much information, like, and then some of my friends on my Facebook, they're sharing their teachings. And me, I don't agree. And I don't say anything either. And I'm not going to. Again, you have to respect. I respect that. But personally, that's how I was taught. Like, if you want to learn these traditional ways, then you go do it traditional way. And that's face to face, in person to in person. And you go spend the time with that person and you learn. And they'll take you by the hand and they'll show you step by step how to pick the medicine, how to prepare it. And this will take time. And that's how it gets done that way. As opposed to going online, Googling it, it says to make 2 parts with this, 1 part with that. Like that. That's not the traditional way. So see, but it's hard to do that because we work, we live in different geographical locations. Like it's not easy, but at the same time, what I say, it's so worth it. It's that saying, whatever you put into it, that's what you're going to get out of it, is so true. So anyway, those are my little 2-cent recommendations there about traditional knowledge. But yeah, by all means.
This question goes along with that as well. So Alejandra, she's saying, thank you for sharing all this information. I'm interested in knowing how and who is responsible to pass along the knowledge and the teachings.
So we as Indigenous people, we are all responsible for passing on the knowledge, but it's up to us to do it in our traditional protocol ways. So again, we have tobacco is very important to offer that tobacco. And there's other things that come with it, depending on the person and their preferences. Some people, medicine people or traditional knowledge people or elders, some of them prefer to have what's called a wepanassoa, or in English, cloth, prayer cloth. So sometimes you might need tobacco and a prayer cloth, you see, but every person is different in terms of their preference. And then there's also a component there of a gift, or in English they call it honorarium, like you give that to honor. See, it's true, a long time ago we never used money. Money didn't exist. but still, we would still give a gift. Maybe we would give something like a tool, you know, like a hammer, or it could be you know, something of that's of use to that person. I know in some cases they would even give a horse, you know, to a healer, you know, as a gift. And yes, money did not exist, but they would still give something that's of value. And that's why you're doing it, you see, is you're honoring that person for their hard work. Like me personally, I know that I worked really, really hard to get my teachings. Like I worked really hard and I spent a lot of time and I made a lot of sacrifices, and like I really had to work. And sometimes it doesn't seem fair that a person comes up to me and wants me to teach them every single thing that I know because they gave me one cigarette. Like it doesn't seem fair. You know, my mom, some of you might know my mom. Someone offered my mom one cigarette for all these braids of sweetgrass, you know. So my mom looked at that person. So what she did is she broke off some sweetgrass and gave it to that person. That's what you get for one cigarette. That's what my mom did, eh? So and it was her way of saying like come on, you gotta, like, I worked hard to pick these things. And you know, like, so somewhere in there there's a balance. And so anyways, this is part of the people that are out there when you want to acquire this knowledge. And at the same time though, you have to be careful that you don't get taken advantage of as a person, because it's sad to say, but we have scammers too, you know, in our culture. And so you have to, there's a balance in there where you just use your common sense. Like you're not going to see a sign, you know, virtual sign, Lyndon Linklater, Knowledge Keeper, $500 per session, you know. like getting advertised, like, you know. But at the same time, there are people out there that they'll ask for X amount, like to get paid, you know. And so somewhere in there, that's not right either, you know. Anyways, all I'm trying to say is there's a balance that exists. But what I suggest is attend the ceremonies, go to the ceremonies. Us, we have we call it Linklater Lodge. We have a sweat lodge ceremony that we offer to anybody who wants to come. Like there's no cost. We don't charge people. Like we just do it because that's what my late dad used to do. And we're carrying on his legacy. So come to our ceremonies. You'll meet people there and you'll start to learn, you know. And that's how we do it. And it's not just us Linklaters. There's lots of other people out there. That's what they do. They offer these ceremonies. You go to them and you learn. That's how you acquire these knowledges, and you'll get to meet people, and you'll start to build your own knowledge base. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Thank you so much. Brittany has a couple here. So she says, there was a time regalia was created based upon a dream and what dances you should be performing in a powwow. Should ribbon skirt colors be based upon something similar, or should they be chosen by an elder?
Well, my answer is both. My answer is both. I believe Creator talks to us through dreams. I truly believe that. So if you have a dream, maybe Creator was talking to you. Use those colors. That's what I would say. Maybe you don't know what colors to use. Then go see an elder or knowledge keeper and get colors from them. And it's okay to do it either way. It's okay either way. You know, I've even heard this out there. There's some controversy about ribbon skirt dresses, you know. And what I say is I say ribbon skirts dresses are beautiful and people should wear them as long as they treat them with respect. Like there's nothing wrong with wearing a ribbon skirt dress, wear them. But I know there's some people that will say, they're not even traditional. Like we never had ribbon when we were in our traditional ways. We never had cloth in our traditional ways, you know, and they might be right. But at the same time, I guarantee you these people ain't living in teepees anymore. I guarantee you these people are driving cars and driving trucks. They're not riding horseback from A to B anymore. You know what I mean? See, and that's what I mean. Culture evolves. It has to evolve or it will die. So that's my little 2 cents about that there. I say ribbon shirts are awesome. Ribbon skirts are awesome. And as long as you treat them with respect, you'll never go wrong. So that's what I say to Brittany's question there.
Perfect, thanks. And she's just asking, really around the ribbon skirt and being asked to give a spirit name. How does and I'm not going to say this right, Manaya or white man find out? So, and that's a question I have. Is that these are traditional teachings and stories, and so as a white person, as a settler, is it okay to be using some of these traditional gifts for, you know, and obviously the knowledge is so important, but things like ribbon skirts or having a spirit name and stuff.
Yeah, Mia, I say it's okay. That's what I say. Again, as long as you have the teachings and you know, as long as you treat them with respect. So in other words, if that word is muniao, that's what that word is, muniao. And I'll tell you something interesting about that word. The Plains Cree people have a very, very difficult time pronunciating the letter L and the letter R, because in our traditional language, those letters do not exist. So how the story goes, they met these men who were bearded and they were like white men. And they asked these men, where do you come from? And these white men responded, we come from Montreal. So within the word Montreal, there's a letter R in there and there's a letter L in there. So when the Crees pronounced Montreal, it came out Muniao. You see? So that's how that word came to be, as a Muniao. So today now, how we understand the word Muniao is we think about like white people, because that's who the people from Montreal were. They were like white people. So anyways, I shared that little tidbit with you. That's where that word comes from, Muniao. Anyways, now I forgot what the question was now. Oh yeah, okay. It's all good. It's all, yeah, it's as long as you treat it with respect. So if you're a settler woman and it's National Indigenous Peoples Day and you want to wear a ribbon dress to support, you know, the Truth and Reconciliation walk that's going on, Rockier Roots walk in Saskatoon, yeah, by all means, wear your ribbon skirt, and you're wearing it in a good way to show support. But at the same time, I don't want to see you wearing that ribbon skirt 2 o'clock in the morning on Broadway Avenue at the pub there. What do they call that? That bar there, something else pub, or else Bud's on Broadway. You know what I mean? 2 a.m. When there's like partying going on and all that. So that's what I mean. Like if you learn the protocols and like when to wear those regalia, those wardrobe, those attire, then it's all good. Same with a spirit name too. If you're a settler and you want a spirit name, as long as you go through the proper protocol, and you know, and you'll ask that spirit, that name giver will ask you, well, why do you want a spirit name? Like, why? They'll want to know why, and you tell them why. And if it makes good reason, you'll get a name, you know. But if you just want a name just because you're writing a book and you want some, you know, notoriety, and you know, it's like you're asking for the wrong reasons. Maybe they won't give you a name if you don't satisfy their kind of a criteria, you know. So what I say, it's okay to have a name, it's okay to wear Indigenous attire, but as long as you kind of understand the protocols surrounding that, and like when to wear them and where not to wear them, then to me it's all good. That's what I say. That's my 2 cents anyways.
Yeah. Rossio had asked a very similar question, but I think you just answered that. It's okay, but to do it with respect and to honor the traditions and the teachings. And yeah, there's been wonderful comments in the chat about people learning about different ceremonies, experiencing for this Kira. Her family attended a ceremony for the first time in Alberta on Sunday. It was a beautiful experience, and she is forever grateful for those who are willing to share teachings and ceremonies with those who are interested in learning. And I extend that to you, Lyndon. I feel I'm honored to have you spend time in teaching us, and you are so incredibly gracious and generous. It just really always touches my heart very deeply that you are there for us. And I, again, have learned so much. I have all these notes, which I usually don't even have a notebook when we're talking in our circles and stuff at the Institute. So thank you. I have learned so much. I know that the participants of this webinar, there's been all through, I'm not going to go back and read everybody's thank yous and stuff, but so many people saying thank you for sharing these stories, the teachings, this sacred knowledge. It is greatly appreciated. And
Thank you.
safe travels. Now that you are, I've been watching these cars go behind you, and I was like, oh my goodness. But so safe travels back to Saskatoon. I look forward to when we can see each other again in person. Yes, and we have lots and lots of thank yous coming up. So everybody who is here, when you close off this Zoom, you will be asked to fill in a very short survey. Please do that. That helps us with planning for future events and gives us feedback on how we can make things better to connect with people. Again, you will, this has been recorded, this webinar, so everybody who registered will receive the link, and it will be on the Prevention Institute's website in the future as well. So thank you again, Lyndon. Really appreciate you. Safe
Go
travel.
Oilers!
And go Oilers tonight. I know. I missed the last game. My son said, did you know it was 8-1? And I was like, oh my gosh, I should have watched. So go Oilers tonight. We're thinking of you.
All right.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.